Welcome to Dial It In, a podcast where we talk with fascinating people about marketing, sales, process improvements, and tricks that they use to grow their businesses. Join me, Dave Meyer, and Trigby Olson of BusyWeb as we bring you interviews on how the best in their fields are dialing it in for their organizations. Let's ring up another episode. Welcome to our summer recap series with the Dial It In podcast. We're covering new episodes each week from the past series, and today we have a choice from Danielle on our production team. Danielle highlights Nicholas Wickes for highlighting his SMS marketing tools. Danielle's family lived in Montana for a short bit, and she worked as a server throughout college, and she was binge watching Yellowstone right around the time that she listened to this episode. She had an immediate connection with Nicholas when he spoke of owning a restaurant in Montana. She was fully invested from the start of the episode and became even more intrigued when the topic centered around SMS marketing. It's a staple in marketing, yet so few people think to use it. She loved hearing about the various ways that Nicholas used text marketing to support his ultimate goal, butts in seats. Nicholas was passionate, and he had all of us sold by the end of the episode. If we ever decide to start a restaurant, we should probably connect with Nicholas, and SMS is the way, especially in such a large rural area where a majority of customers are locals. It's an easy way to get direct contact with most of your loyal customers, and it works. We've gotten a few texts from favorite restaurants, and it's estimated that 50% success rate. If we have nothing going on, I'd say those are great odds. This episode has great nuggets of info about how to keep you entertained, regardless of whether you own a restaurant or are planning to use text marketing. Enjoy Nicholas Wickes, and we'll see you next week.
I know normally we start these things by having some funny quips, but I think today what I want to do is our guest, Dave. I met on you and I had a very different day the day that I met this guest. So then your story, and then we'll bring on the guest because I think he knows a little bit of it.
Ooh,
But
sure.
what we're going to be talking about today is specificity in technology. And so we have a guy who has revolutionized SMS marketing in the restaurant industry, and he's got an amazing, cool product that we're going to be talking about. But we have a sponsor for today's episode.
We do. And I will bring that up. So I'd like to introduce DataQuick, the ultimate tool for HubSpot CRM administrators and data architects. DataQuick seamlessly exports your HubSpot CRM architecture into an interactive, user-friendly map, streamlining data mapping, cleanup, and organization. With DataQuick, you can quickly identify and manage every object, property, and drop-down value in your portal, saving valuable time and reducing manual effort. Experience efficient data management and ensure accuracy with DataQuick. Visit dataquick.co to get started today.
Thanks, Dave. So here's my story about the day that I met our guest. You and I both got booked to be breakout speakers at an event that was about 200 miles outside of the metro area in which we live. And you, because you're not great with details, didn't realize that also coincided with your 25th anniversary, third or fifth or ninth honeymoon. You had flown to Costa Rica, I want to say.
Dominican Republic.
Yeah, there we go. Dominican Republic. David said to me, "Hey, I'm going to be getting back late. Why don't you stay overnight? Because it was at a really great resort. And then if I don't get there in time, you can just do my pre-sale in the morning," which is what happens all the time. Dave covers for me. I cover for Dave. So I said, sure. Packed an overnight bag, drove up, and I was halfway there sitting at a stoplight, and I got completely rear-ended. I love my car, and I couldn't have been angrier because my car is very special to me for personal reasons. And I got out ready to commit murder, and I ran into a 19-year-old kid driving an 18-year-old car, holding his cell phone in his hand because he was clearly talking to somebody because he didn't have Bluetooth, and was crying his eyes out.
No.
So I immediately went from murder to honey, and we took some pictures, and then he's like, "I don't know." I was like, "Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get off the highway as soon as you can. You're going to call your mom and tell her what happened. Tell her you need comfort. Then you're going to call your insurance agent. Okay." "No, he's like, okay, sure, fine." So then I start driving because I'm still like an hour and a half away. about half an hour in, I, using my Bluetooth, realized, God, my back really hurts and my neck really hurts.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
call a colleague, like, hey, do we have anybody else who can do speeches with no warning, who can drive up and cover for me in case I can't make it? She's, no, we don't. And I believe, hit the alarm bell because I immediately started getting texts from Dave's wife, well, as I was driving, and I was progressively feeling worse and worse. So I get there and I sit down and eat a little box lunch. And I'm thinking about the end of my talk, and I noticed one of the vendors there was an exact fit for it. So I quick took a picture of his booth, and then I added it as the last slide of my presentation. Then I went to the presentation, and when I did the presentation, I started the presentation saying, "Hey, just want to let everybody know I was in a bad car accident about an hour and a half ago, and they're really worried about me, if specifically for memory loss. So if I start to repeat myself, please say something." And then I did that 3 more times in the next 45 minutes because I thought it was a good, funny joke. So I kept saying, "Hey, by the way, I got into a car accident about 90 minutes ago. If I start repeating myself, will you please let me know?" And then I got out, and it was like all my adrenaline finally stopped and my whole body seized. It was like, "Ow." I was like, "Nope, I'm going home. Good luck, Dave." Uh,
Yeah.
I drove the 3.5 hours home with a bruised car. So how do you remember that day?
Well, I do remember receiving an urgent call and texting all the way on the flight home. And the detail that I missed was I thought I was supposed to be in at 7 a.m. the night before. And it turns out we were supposed to arrive at 7 a.m. the morning of the talk. And so I scrambled, landed, drove the 5 hours from the airport to the location and got there just in time to deliver my talk, at which point Trigby had already been back home because he did his the day before. So it was a wild time and very interesting. And I'm glad that Trigby is better. And I'm glad no one actually forcibly put him into the hospital because of his shenanigans.
Well, yeah, it wasn't, yeah, I suppose there was a definite possibility I could have been committed. Didn't really realize that nobody said anything. So I was just, and I think the bummer of the day was not that my car got hit, but that nobody appreciated the joke like I did. So the vendor in question is a wonderful guy. We've remained friends since then. His name is Nicholas Wickes. He is a dynamic entrepreneur and the co-founder of Check This Out. It's a referral software platform that helps restaurant and hospitality businesses amplify customer engagement through innovative SMS marketing. He's got years of experience in both the tech and restaurant industries and a unique perspective on how digital marketing, particularly SMS, can really elevate a brand's connection with its audience. How do you remember that day, Nicholas?
Well, well, Trigby, thank you for that introduction. I remember you being as funny and cordial and professional as as you've always been. And it just struck me, I almost didn't believe your story because you were just like rolling with it. And there was a moment where you were sitting on a stool outside of the workshop after you had presented, and I think some of your adrenaline may have worn off at that point, and you were starting to grimace, but you grimaced with a smile, and your presentation was very impactful. So
Yeah, thank you.
you pulled it off. Not to say that you should get into an accident like that again,
No.
ever, but your presentation was definitely well received, and I did hear people laughing. So maybe
Well,
you had a
good, good. There's a lot of programs out there that do SMS marketing. They do bulk SMS marketing. I think we're getting out of the election, and I think no matter who you voted for in the election, we can all be happy that we're not going to get texts from the Harris campaign anymore. Good for us as a people. And tell me about the genesis of Check This Out.
Yeah, thank you for that. In 2014, a friend came to me and said, at the time, I was an enterprise software consultant and I was dabbling in property in Las Vegas and Tempe in Central California. And a friend in Montana came to me and said, "Hey, you want to open a restaurant?" And I told to tell that story to a room full of restaurateurs, and they just cringe and they're all like, "Oh no."
Don't do it, man. Don't do it.
Don't do it. And so lo and behold, of course I said yes, because, why the heck not? And 10 years later, a pandemic and some tough times, I'm still managing partner of a restaurant in Bozeman, Montana called Feast Bistro. A couple of years into that journey, it occurred to me that, and I have never been a very good restaurateur because I just have my hackles up all the time. I'm not a magician in the kitchen. I'm not an empath, hospitality guy out front. I'm the data guy. I'm the geeky data business guy in the back. I'm a very good eater, but a couple of years in, I was like, there's something wrong here. We put up this amazing food and we announced specials by putting them on a chalkboard to 60 people who are sitting in the restaurant. And at the same time, I was the guy that was collecting all of the flyers. We've done everything short of TV ads, radio spots, flyers, print ads, you name it, everything. And I was the guy that was collecting all of the direct mail that people were handing in to redeem their discount, basically these paper coupons, right? I grew up cutting coupons with my grandmother. And we were still doing this in like 2016, 2017, right? As a business. And the return was good. But I was like, wait a second. We want two types of customers to come in the restaurant, right? This is very simplified. We want to get existing guests back more often, and we want to get new customers through the doors. We don't actually know. These flyers are just coming in from people and we have no data on them, right? We might get a phone number from them if they made a reservation to get in the restaurant. So we might have a piece of data afterwards, but it was a very thin way to market. The ROI was okay, but it wasn't great. And so I looked at that chalkboard one day and I was like, that is something that differentiates Feast, not only from every other restaurant in our market, but from ourselves, right? So we can offer something new and we can tell all of our diners, all of our guests about it. What is the easiest way to do that? And I forget exactly how the idea of texting came about, but it almost seemed obvious at the time. And so we started dabbling with using a texting platform and that worked, but it was getting existing guests to come back more often, but it wasn't getting new folks in the door. And I just started to learn more about it in the restaurant business. It's roughly 80% of a restaurant's business, certainly in the first 3 years, that's driven by word of mouth to get new people in the door.
This is outer level, low. This is 2017, 2018. You're coming to these realizations. Good. Because there's going to be a big giant hammer that's on the forefront.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. We were very fortunate to have some of this stuff figured out prior to 2020, the pandemic. Getting existing customers, but then also getting new customers back. So we went down the road of using text. And then with my tech background as a software quality engineer and just talking to some tech friends, I was like, can we use this 32-year-old channel being SMS? And can we use discounts? And can we use people's networks to help them spread the word, right? Using text to send discounts out to their friends and family. And this has been done for a lot of e-commerce platforms, but not for retail and certainly not for restaurants. So this is kind of a long way of answering your question, Craig. That was the genesis of, check this out. The MVP started with a word of mouth engine where Feast and then other restaurants, and now restaurants in 7 or 8 different states, some of them use the word of mouth engine and some don't, but those that do, they invite their guests to be their sales team, right? That all of their marketing is within their 4 walls, basically. And so they do that, and then they do some Google ads and some SEO and some other, depending on where the restaurant is in their evolution. There are lots of different ways to market, but certainly the SMS piece for Feast in terms of facilitating and harnessing word of mouth and accelerating it, that's the key piece, right? It's such a vital channel, yet restaurateurs just hope that people are going to talk about their restaurant. Hope is not a strategy, right? So what we do is we give them the power to accelerate that word of mouth. We call it word of trust because the way that our software works is that referees end up getting a text, right? End up getting a text from a friend. It shows up with their friend's name their friend's phone number saying, I just had a great experience at this restaurant and you should check it out too. If you activate this discount and you redeem it for up to $20, I'll get a $15 credit. Let's do this together. Let's support this restaurant. You can get a discount and I can potentially eat for free. It's very compelling on both sides. And we track that entire referral cycle. We call it our value flow. So restaurants can really drill down and they can see who their chatty Cathys are. All of a sudden, their most valuable diner is not somebody who goes into the restaurant the most. It's that person that has had the most discounts redeemed, who has driven the most business to that restaurant. So it flips it around a little bit. It's roughly a 12x return on investment. And on the word of mouth side, right? In gross sales, it's a very high performing way to acquire a new customer. And if you ask a restaurant, I would say that 95% of restaurants don't know what their customer acquisition cost is. But if you do, and they know, we roughly reduce customer acquisition costs by a little less than 50%. For example, for Feast, we brought our customer acquisition costs down from $86 to $46 to acquire a new customer. Once that customer is acquired, and this is the retention piece, is that campaigns go out announcing a special, right? You send out a dinner special between 3 and 3:30 in the afternoon. The data, that's when folks are making their reservations, when their stomach juices are starting to flow, that the reservation platforms, all their data shows that most of their dinner reservations are made between that time. You send out a campaign about a special with a beautiful photo of a delicious dish, a mouth-watering description. And if they do have online reservations, click to make a reservation. And that's where the 17x return on investment comes from in gross sales. And they see that time to revenue, 80% of it, that first night. Folks get that campaign. If they're on a panel or when I'm presenting to folks, I ask folks, hey, how many folks like to eat? Okay, everybody's hands go up. How many folks like to eat out, eat delicious food? Everybody's hands go up. Then you meet people where they're at. And should be, this is something that you talk about in your workshop, was the power of SMS to be able to meet folks where they're at, right? If on their phone with a 98% open rate within 3 minutes. That's why, because they have their phone in their back pocket and everybody knows how to use SMS. You don't have to download an app to use. Check this out. It just pops up. Our software just uses that incredible channel and technology of SMS to meet people where they're at and present them with beautiful photos of delicious dish. That's what we do. And we love, I just love supporting restaurants and helping amazing cooks and amazing hospitality professionals do what they love to do. And we take the business, 60 to 70% of restaurants go out of business in the first year. That just breaks my heart. And we want to flip that around. We want to make that 30% of restaurants go out of business in the first year. And that's the impact that we're starting to have on our restaurants, on our clients, is that they're not just surviving, but they're actually thriving using SMS through Check This Out.
It's interesting you talk about coupon cutting with your grandmother, because I recently had to move my in-laws into assisted living, and they are furious that they don't get the Sunday papers anymore. And I'm like, I don't understand why. You all have iPads, you all have phones, you all have there's 1,000 square feet, and they think they have 4 TVs in their apartment. Finally, I said, can you explain to me, why is this a problem? It's just because we don't get the Sunday circulars. How are we going to know what we're hungry for next week if we don't know what's on sale? And I really didn't have an answer for that. Okay, so now we're getting her subscription to the newspaper for Christmas. Hopefully she didn't hear. I think one of the most demonstrable and interesting ways in which you've decided to utilize the technology is you also overlay it with the fundamental thing that restaurants understand, is that you eat with your eyes before you eat with anything else. And you've coupled that with people make decisions emotionally and then justify rationally.
Yep.
So you're literally putting a big giant sign in front of them that says you should come to here.
And now with the camera technology on cell phones, and to capture, and all you need to do is put a grouping of ingredients for that dish, or the actual finished plate at a table next to a window. And then you snap a photo, and then maybe you put it through an Instagram filter or some other kind of editing. And to your point, there's your beautiful photo of a delicious dish that everybody eats up, right? Condé Nast, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry of just photos of food. And so that's exactly it. With that, that's how we enable our customers to not just be top of mind and engage their guests, but to get their stomach juices flowing, because they've already been in, they already know that they've already been acquired. So they know what the quality of food is, what it tastes like. And they see a photo of something that they've never had at that restaurant before, or maybe they haven't had in 6 months. And they're like, honey, we're going. We have no plans tonight. We're going into that restaurant. We're going into Bob's Bistro because that dish looks amazing. Or they pick up the phone and they start calling friends. And so this is what's really fun. What I really enjoy about the restaurant industry is that when you engage somebody, you're not just engaging them, you're engaging an average party size. And so in full service, let's say it's 2.7 people. One person makes a reservation. That's great. The conversion is actually 2.7 people, right? Times the per person average. That's the ROI right there. If you acquire a new customer, right? If you use the word of mouth engine and you bring somebody new in, then it's average party size times the PPA, per person average, times retention rate. And then for a 1-year lifetime value, right? Some of this stuff, I don't necessarily use a lot of this verbiage with restaurateurs because they're too busy thinking about making amazing food and being empaths. But the value of that customer, that new customer that you can bring in and then retain over a year, that's the power of Check This Out's word of mouth engine and then retention platform.
Amazing. But Nicholas, I have a couple of timing questions because you mentioned a little bit earlier that it's a good idea to send a text at a specific time when people are thinking about when they're going to book a reservation. So for your average restaurant, is there a best time of either the week or the day to send out messages like this to boost like that day or that week?
Yeah, for restaurants, the feedback that I've gotten and from the research that I've done, generally Tuesdays, Wednesdays, but generally Wednesdays and Sundays are slower, right?
Mhm.
Are slower nights. So if you can maximize, if you're not full of capacity over the weekend, that's low hanging fruit. Send
Mhm.
out a campaign on a Friday between 3 and 3:30 for dinner, and you will pack the restaurant for that night. And then you'll have 15 to 18% of that business from that campaign come in the next night, and then some on Sunday. But at the very least, fully maximize your capacity when folks are really excited about going out and having some good food with family and friends on Friday and Saturday. Then if that Tuesday or Wednesday, and for most of our restaurants, it's Wednesday. So they need to drive traffic, midweek traffic. So some of them send out a campaign on Tuesday announcing a special, or a Wednesday announcing a midweek special. That's pretty unique, but it's all about making the most of what you have, what you've built
Mhm.
as a restaurateur, and maximizing your kitchen and feeding incredible food to as many people as possible. And that's kind of part of the ethos of Check This Out, is that we're long on humanity. We want to bring people together. We love bringing people together. Mano a mano, right? Breaking bread. There's no degree of technology that is going to replace that. There's so much joy when I put my restaurateur hat on. There's so much joy in seeing people come together and sharing ideas and sharing delicious food. And then to be part of the technology to help facilitate that and to help restaurateurs do what they love to do in bringing people together over delicious food.
So you opened a high-end restaurant in a town of 60,000 and you survived the pandemic with everybody else closing, with Tom Colicchio closing, with Anthony Bourdain closing, all of these major league people. You had high buck stuff in a little town. How did you do that?
Yeah, I would say back in 2015, Bozeman, Montana was closer to 40,000 people,
Wow.
42,000 people. I'm gonna say, Trigby, that with a lot of good fortune and gratitude for a really amazing team, my operating partner, our GM, Steve, and then our kitchen, our executive chef and sous chefs. So recognizing the team that you have, but then also just really not giving up and turning over every single stone to give diners and give our guests the opportunity to come in and enjoy the food and feast ambiance, right? And so that's a communication. And one of our advisory board members, Jeff Batten, a good friend of mine and business partner, and just super smart. He distilled it and was like, check this out, is actually a communications platform, which it is. It's not a very sexy way to describe it, but that's the opportunity that we afford restaurants, is to communicate with their guests, especially during a pandemic or slower times, just to give folks at the right time of day a reason to come on in. It's the power of the nudge. And I know that there's lots of research and data out there and about that Harvard has done on the power of the nudge, but that's essentially what we do, right? That nudge, to answer your question, increases our retention rate on average across Check This Out by a third, just by nudging existing guests to come back more often. For example, so Feast's retention rate, this was a couple of years ago, was roughly 3 times a year. Heavy tourist traffic, lots of folks that don't come back for if ever. But then you find that average with the locals. And so 3 times a year, we started using Check This Out. It bumped it up to 4 times a year. That's a very quick uptick in business. And right now, to your point, Tridby, this is a tough time for restaurateurs. Like, they have seen, let's say, a 30%, 40% increase in labor costs over the last 2 years. And that, for a lot of folks, that totally wipes out their net margin. They're 7%. Top restaurants, 3%. Folks who are, doing a good enough job, it's 10%. Let's say it's 7%. That 7% is gone. So now they really need to buckle down and focus on, first of all, think about what their finish line is. A beautiful website is great. And a gazillion followers on social media is great. And an email that reads like a newsletter, I don't know if that's so great, but it's a way of keeping in touch with folks. But does it get your business over the finish line? The finish line being butts in seats. It's a very crude thing to say. And as a diner myself, I don't want to be considered a butt in the seat. But from a business standpoint, that's what we're talking about. And so getting butts in seats and then doing what works to get those butts in seats. So that's what kind of got us through those tougher times. As a business, we almost folded early on because our model, we hadn't quite fleshed out. The economics didn't quite add up, but it forced us to buckle down and really look at what we were spending on marketing and make sure that our marketing was actually working to get butts in seats. In terms of the pandemic, Trigby, we had just an amazing pipeline to communicate with all of our folks, right? And God forbid this ever happens again, but they knew exactly when we were open or when we were closed, what our capacity was. We obviously pivoted, or not pivoted, but tacked to take out really quickly, like a lot of other folks. But we could communicate all of that with our diners. We were sending out 3 or 4 campaigns a day. I don't recommend, sorry, not a day, a week, right? I don't recommend that now. We recommend really maxing out at two a week. But that's what got us through the pandemic.
But
along
it
with
plays on FOMO, right? And
Yeah.
especially restaurants are one of those things that, as I get older and I'm more comfortable with my income and I'm increasingly more tired during the week, my 10-year-old has discovered that is the time to come to mom and dad and say, "Do you want to go out for dinner tonight?"
right. There you go.
And he's a little sharp for a number of reasons. But again, that whole idea of showing you what you could have, as opposed to just talking about another night at Applebee's, really
Yeah.
does make a difference, because then you're thinking about how good that tastes to me, and the ambiance and the setting is almost secondary to the actual product, which is different than restaurants usually work. Restaurants usually work on the overall experience, the whole zhuzh, the music, the wait staff, the standards and procedures. You're really flipping that all on its head and say the product and the want of the product is the most important.
That's exactly it. And so for our restaurants that also have an amazing wine list and have like wine specials, and they want to showcase bottles of wine, but that's not what gets people into restaurants. Food is what gets people into restaurants. Now, if it's a bar, we have some customers that are breweries or distilleries. That's totally different. But if it's a restaurant and if, to your point, if that core product is food, then get those stomach juices going with something that they've never had before. And if folks, they have their favorite restaurant, there's nothing more that they love than to try something new that kitchen is putting out. And so that's also what's fun is that some of our customers have changed their program because of Check This Out. They have introduced, they may not have had a weekly special. They started using Check This Out because of wine dinners or because of a gift card giveaway or because of a new location or just communicating something else other than food. But then they see the power of it and they're like, okay, maybe we should do a special this week and Check This Out for that. And then that's stickiness. Once the restaurant starts communicating a new way to enjoy that restaurant and that kitchen's talent, folks are very engaged and the conversion rate is incredibly high.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's fun to see.
For SMS, it's pretty obvious that you've got a mobile device in your hands and that works really well. Bozeman is a touristy kind of town. And so a lot of people might be coming into town that might not have ever been there. And so might not be exposed or have a network to refer. Are there other essential channels that you use, especially in a tourism driven location like Bozeman? Does social media play out well for marketing, or do you recommend other things like SEO?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dave. That timing and so tacking or really pivoting to all digital media in 2018 to digital channels, that was incredible for us in terms of getting us through that kind of tough time and prepping us, unfortunately, for the pandemic, but getting us through the pandemic. And so, yes, so for those local folks, it's SMS. For tourists, it's SEO and Google ads and Facebook ads. So social media ads and Google ads, because that's 90% of search traffic, right, is over Google. And that's what folks do. We started out by creating partnerships with hotels and befriending concierges and giving folks a little bit of a kickback for referring folks. And that helps. But in this day and age, when folks go to a new place, they just enter what's the best restaurant in town, or I love seafood restaurant in Bozeman. Right. And so working with an agency that really has that dialed on how to manage ads, maximize those keywords and that ad spend. Social media it does help, but in my mind, for at least I can only speak to Feast. So it's where we're at in our evolution, not the best use of design time and creating copy. If you're going to create that copy and get that photo, put it out over SMS. Albeit you pay for SMS, social media is free, but you get what you pay for. Yes.
I think I have to end the podcast. I'm so shocked and a little bit hurt. And I think I'm just utterly destroyed. Did I hear you correctly that a hotel concierge doesn't just provide altruism as a service? I'm shocked. I know you.
I know. And that some of them were swayable. I'll just say that.
You're kidding. Oh my goodness. Oh,
I know.
Now that we're entering into 2025, what do you think the best ways that restaurants are going to be able to market themselves? And then I want to circle back and I want to know this. My follow-up to this is, how are you going to be marketing yourselves to that community?
Yeah, that's a great question, Trigby. We are going to stick with our digital marketing strategy. We are going to keep tabs on what's going on with AI and other technologies that could maybe be layered in. You won't even know that AI is actually part of the product, right? It's a button in Check This Out that says, write this better with AI. And we're actually talking with a couple of AI specific marketing for restaurants, AI vendors about that. So we're going to keep an eye on that. I'm not going to get too wrapped up in the new bright and shiny, because at the end of the day, you only want to spend time as a restaurateur with that super tight margin on what gets butts and seats. So you don't want to be paying for anything that isn't attributable revenue. That's the technical term that we're talking about. It's got to be all tied and aligned to revenue. So for restaurateurs, they will get through this tough time. They are going to have to penny pinch, and they're going to have to focus on channels that work to get butts and seats. I'm just going to put it simply like that. Washington hospitality panel that I was on last week, I pretty much had the room chanting butts in seats, because they just knew what I was going to say in terms of my message about AI or about this or about that. It's all look at all the options, take some advice, maybe don't try everything, maybe actually follow some of the advice but just be really cognizant about what works to get mouths at tables. No business, no mouths, no money. It's very crude, but that's my business. That's how I approach this really tough business, is from a very simplified kind of Occam's razor approach.
I love that. I think one of the things that you have insinuated, but we haven't actually, is really understanding before you pick a tactic on how you're going to market your business, and especially a restaurant business, you need to roll it back 2 layers to really understand who your customer is. And in the case of your restaurant, you mentioned that had an understanding as that data guy that a good portion of our business comes from tourists. We're really going to be here 3 or 4 times a year. And the rest of the time we got to bring in the locals. And so there's a mix there and so to get the tourists, you had to do SEO. To get the locals, you had to do the SMS program.
You got it, Tribby. That's exactly it. And so many restaurants and tourist markets, they forget about that local customer, and they're in big trouble if they think that people are just going to come on in because they're there. That's not how we work as consumers. We've got to get, and it's almost as if food is the low hanging fruit. Sorry, horrible pun. But it's because it's such a high volume business. If you figure it out and you message to those locals when they need that message, when they're receptive to it, you're going to get that local business. Yes. So dialing back to that marketing plan, and God knows restaurateurs, at least mom and pop, single couple of locations, don't have time to write a marketing plan. There are some professionals out there that are really good at writing marketing plans. So
Davis. We'll have to bleep that out. I coughed into the mic. Sorry.
Right. Are you okay? Are you
I'm okay. I'm all right. Yeah.
All right. So yes, at least have that framework in your heads as to Trigby. You're saying it's the who, it's the what are you marketing, and then you get down to the how, right? Really, those 3 of the 5 W's, right? Or how, not a W.
Well, it's important to even know because I think I see this in the B2B marketing that we do a lot and I think this holds true for restaurants too, because I came up from being a bartender, and I think everybody needs to work a year in the service industry. I think it changes you fundamentally as a person.
Without a doubt.
And how you look at the world changes as a person. So I think as a restaurateur, you can say, who is your customer? And the natural and frankly, the stupid response is everybody. What do you mean everybody? Everybody's got to eat, right? And we got food here.
Right.
That's great. If it's not warmth or love or regular food, not everybody needs you. Or if I take my 10-year-old to your restaurant, I've seen pictures, he's probably going to order the very expensive chicken fingers.
Oh, they're so good. The Vietnamese chicken wings. Oh my gosh.
I'll give you his number. You can text him a picture. And
I don't like chicken wings, but the ones that Feast Kitchen comes up with, I don't know how they do it. It is magical, and they are so good. So
I saw a great meme about the value of going on vacation is so your kids can eat chicken fingers in exotic locales.
Yep.
The point being is your restaurant's more higher end. And so I'm not going to bring my 10-year-old on a Tuesday, but if I get an hour and a half with my wife where I don't have my kid along, we're probably going to go there and have a really nice couple of apps at the bar and have a couple of glasses of wine and have that great experience too. So actually knowing the situations and the value of your customer is just crucial in any business. But I guess the point I was trying to make, and I'll stop monologuing, is that deeper understanding then leads to tactics, and just leaving it at something as so trite and cliche as everybody's got to eat. That's not going to cover tables.
Yeah. No, it's not. This kind of gets a little more deeper right into marketing, and I'm totally stepping in your guys'
No,
pool
keep
or
going.
sandbox.
Step away.
But it's and especially in the restaurant industry, and I think this is what you're saying about being a bartender and being in the service industry, it forces you to, or just to start to learn about empathy as a young person, as a teenager, whether you're a host or a dishwasher. It's that empathy piece, like the geeky business speak or the tech speak, is the voice of the customer. You always want to have the voice of of your customer in your head, and you have an ideal customer profile. We wouldn't have, my partners and I wouldn't have started Feast if we didn't have a sense of
Hmm.
who we wanted to make food for. It wasn't everybody. That's really important. Do what you do best. And if you've done well with your business plan and had the right guidance from banks and advisors and other professionals, you're gonna find what your core competency is. So Feast was never gonna be a Texas Roadhouse that I went into for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and their food was phenomenal. I can't wait to go back. But that's just not what Feast is all about in terms of our product. So
Hmm.
it's really important for restaurateurs, like going forward, 2025. Think about this need to really buckle down and to really focus on what you do best, who your customer is, ideal customer profile, and use the channels that connect with them. Of course, I'm going to say SMS for everybody, but it may not be SMS. It might be other digital channels that work better based on who you're trying, who you're trying to attract, who you're trying to make food for, right? Who your customer is, what your price point is, that kind of stuff we can go, for miles talking about
Yeah.
product market fit, right? And
Hmm.
pricing strategy, that kind of thing.
Nicholas, what's next for Check This Out? Are there any big technological things that you're looking at or working on for 2025? We talked about AI. Is that going to be a big thing? And is there anything else that you're thinking about to drive new business for those restaurants?
Yeah, we're really excited. We are working our product pipeline in terms of making improvements to check this out, is looking at dining as, right, it's the experience industry. So we've gone from ag to industrial to service. And then we're moving into, or morphing a little bit, or those experience businesses that help, again, connect people, help with visceral responses. I like to say shared visceral experiences in the great outdoors. That last part is just my kind of addition to that. Adventure this, adventure that, or adventure dining. So
Hmm.
we're going to start to look at how to bring people together for not just dining experiences, but experiences in general,
Hmm.
because there are so many ways that folks they want to enjoy their time with their family or their friends and not just dine together. They want to maybe do some other stuff together. So without going too far down that's where we're looking in terms of adding value for our customers and making it exciting for new restaurants that we bring on board, that that there are other features and other exciting tools that kind of can help grow their business, making
Right.
connections with other types of businesses to round out that experience.
I love it.
In preparation for my talk, a year plus change ago, I read a book about the restaurant industry by a guy named John Taffer, who's famous on TV, and he owns a lot of bars. He's one of those people that has one of those reality shows where he yells at you and then all of a sudden everything's okay at the end.
Right?
Part of his book has haunted me since I read it. And his theory on business on the whole is that you only, as an owner or an operator, you only have control over your processes and your standards that you bring in. All those three things are all in service of giving your customer a specific experience, or has that experience that's all in their own heart and all in their own head, and you have no control over it other than making them want to have that, to guide that experience in the way that you want. And ever since I've heard that, it's just really fundamentally changed how I look at business, because I think it's true across the board. You have
Yep.
control over your people, your processes, your standards, all of which are in service is giving an experience. That's why I think your tool, especially, is so much more specific than anything else when it comes to presentation of options, because you are reminding them of that experience. You are encouraging them to have it again, and you're doing that through beautiful food.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I can't wait until RCS or SMS comes out with a smell-o-vision option
Yeah.
because I really want to smell the chow that's coming through.
Yes,
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah. Scratch and sniff. Everyone's going to be scratching their
there you
tip.
go.
Yeah.
Scratching their phones.
Nicholas, I feel like we could go for another hour, but we're running short. We're a little over on time already. Can we have you back on the pod again?
Likewise. I would love to, Trigby.
Okay,
Dave,
perfect.
So fun.
thank you so
Yeah.
much. I really enjoyed this. You guys are
If
awesome.
somebody's looking for, check this out. Where do they find?
They can go to checkthisout.io. If they're a restaurateur and they want to see it in action, they can go to feastbistro.com and scroll down the homepage, and a check this out widget will pop up, and they can enter their phone number and they'll start receiving feasts campaigns. And so they can just experience check this out from that standpoint. They can always reply stop. Every message you can reply stop to unsubscribe, but at least they can get on the platform and see it in action and send discounts to their friends and family, because Feast uses the word of mouth engine. And so they can click on that link at the bottom of that first campaign that they get and send discounts to friends. They may be halfway around the world, but at least they can start to see how that word of mouth engine works. And they can reach out directly to me if they want. Nicholas at checkthisout.io.
That's why
That's
I think
NICH.
you're sly as a cougar, because you're offering a live fire demo. You're not going to everybody's got a software demo. You're like, go look at this. And I think what inevitably happens is what happens with me is, because I did that and I signed up and I looked at it and I was staring at a big juicy steak and I was thinking, who do I know in Bozeman that I can send this to?
Right? I got to get out to Bozeman.
I got to have somebody check this out. Any last classy and inspirational thoughts?
The biggest part for me is the immediacy and the personal part of restaurant marketing, but especially what Check This Out and what Nicholas is doing is so cool and so immediate. There's nothing more personal than what you're going to eat. And there's nothing more personal than the device that we all hold in our hands. So it's a perfect merger of being there at the right place at the right time with a fantastic idea. So congratulations on having such a wonderful tool. And I can't wait to try it out and to text it at Feast Bistro or going to checkthisout.io.
Thank you. Yep. Awesome.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, Nicole. This has been an episode of Dial It In, produced by Nicole and Andy Witowski. We will see you next time. Thanks to our sponsor, DataQuick, and with apologies to Tony Kornheiser. We will also try to do better the next time.